Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. I am Sandra Murphy and use the pronoun she, her. And along with Terri Cross, we will be your worship associates for this service. Reflections on General Assembly, or as we refer to it, GA. When Terri and I were elected by the congregation to serve as the GA delegates, we understood that we would be experiencing a virtual General Assembly, and there was an expectation that we would do a service. To quote Stephen Covey, we began with the end in mind. Today's service will be filled with pearls of wisdom that we gleaned from our 5 days of virtual GA. For those who may not know, General Assembly is the largest annual gathering of Unitarian Universalists. It provides the opportunity to build deep connections, to worship, to engage in faith development, participate in innovative learning, and collaborate with our fellow UUs. This was the second year of the virtual General Assembly, and while plans are underway for the 2022 GA in Portland, Oregon, it will be both in-person and virtual. One of the great learnings from the first virtual GA is that more people could participate and did. So that is the context for this service. The theme for this year's GA was Circle Round for Justice, Healing, Courage. I want to thank Jennifer for our beautiful prelude. The use of pronouns and land acknowledgement was used throughout the GA sessions, so I've added this to our service. The following land acknowledgement words are mine alone. This congregation meets and worships on land held sacred by the original people of the Anishinaabe, Mississauga, and Sioux. These people were and continue to be displaced by Europeans. Indigenous people and communities are still with us today. It is our duty and privilege to honor this truth and with reciprocity, humility, and reparations. I counter the doctrine of discovery by naming and honoring the traditional indigenous inhabitants of these lands. If you are searching for a church that believes love, the quest for justice, and the use of reason are the most important things, then our congregation may be right for you. To learn more about our congregation or UU, please contact the church office and we will get back with you. Contact information can be found on our website, uuflint.org. And now we will light our chalice and have our opening words. Draw the circle wide. No one is alone, we are side by side. Draw the circle this wide. And now, if you will join me in reciting our covenant, recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions, to increase goodness and justice.
Good morning. I'm Terri Cross, and for today's meditation is going to give you a little something to contemplate. This is from the Reverend Sherry Holliday Kwan. I invite you into a spiritual practice of inventorying the ability to know and name what you have and what you need. It's a skill well practiced by some among us, and for others, less so. Especially if you come from material privilege, you may not always recognize that you have more than you need. Especially if you've been raised to idolize self-sufficiency and the illusion of independence, you may not know that you are in need. Perhaps for you, interdependence has not been a choice but a reality, and for others, practicing an honest inventory is something that's been developed over this past year. In the last year, in the context of the scarcity of the pandemic, we've witnessed the abundance of community alongside toilet paper hoarding, a growing housing crisis, and vaccine rollout inequities. Mutual aid networks also blossomed. Those who had forgotten remembered to lean on each other. Neighbors and strangers shared what they had, and so as we go through this inventory, I invite you to think through each item. Is this need met? Do I have an abundance to share? Will I risk naming this need here? Mutual aid begins with the basics: food, shelter, water, clothing, and health care. So let us begin our inventory. Do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have health care? Do you have clothing? Do you have shelter? Do you have community? Do you have trust? Do you have understanding? Do you have courage? Do you have time? Do you have care? Do you have heart? Do you have hope? Do you have a chance? Do you have joy? Do you have a pause? Do you have a moment? Do you have breath? I believe this gathering to be a place of abundance, even though not everyone comes to this space with everything they need. I believe each of us comes here with some needs unmet, and our ability to meet the needs of all, well, that demands that we're able to do an honest inventory, to ask for what we need, to take no more than is enough. We are the right people at the right time for the work we must do together. Everything we need is here. Share what you have. Take what you need. No more, no less.
Throughout my 40-year career in the nonprofit world, I attended a great many conferences. It was one of the perks, really. I flew to cities I might never have visited before: New Orleans, Boston, San Francisco, Baltimore, and San Antonio, to name a few. I stayed in wonderful hotels and had my fair share of banquet meals. I maximized my time for optimal learning by limiting the number of late nights, the number of adult beverages consumed, and planned to see the city I was in. I also learned how to bring back to my everyday work life key learnings from the conference. I would sit in workshops and gather nuggets of ideas, things that would excite me, and in my mind be applied with little effort to the work I was currently doing, or pass them along to my colleagues. I would sit in large halls and listen to national speakers and be inspired about the future. That inspiration would carry me for a period of time, stir the fire in my belly for the work I was recommitted to do. I want to thank the UUCF congregation for giving me this opportunity to be your delegate to the virtual General Assembly. A virtual conference meant I would be in my home, in front of my laptop, eating my own food. The good thing was I could get up and walk around, go to the bathroom, take a break, sit on my couch drinking an adult beverage, and not disturb anyone or miss anything. I applied my same technique of gathering nuggets and being inspired by national speakers. So today I'm going to share nuggets in one big thought. Admittedly, these are focused internal to the operation of this beloved congregation because we are at a place of great opportunity and great challenge. Nugget number 1, land acknowledgement. I started the service with an acknowledgement to the Native people who inhabited this land before Europeans. I researched some language used for this through the Community Foundation of Greater Flint's Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation work, and passed that on to our ministers for the worship committee to consider as an ongoing piece of our worship services. It felt like the right thing to do. Nugget number 2, staffing for a small congregation. In a session on building resilience through staffing innovation, I learned that some congregations share a staff person to maximize limited resources. This can lead to enhanced programming for members of the congregation in geographic proximity and expand work opportunities for competent employees. Remote staffing has become even more popular since COVID, reducing a person hours in person, but not necessarily the amount of work completed. Building resilience through staffing innovation. Nugget number 3, traditional board retreats flipped on their head. A traditional board retreat planning session for 3 to 5 years in the future is a thing of the past, particularly given this last year. One thought shared was to do quarterly think tanks with the entire congregation utilizing technology. Short-term goals could be set and reports on work done could be shared on a quarterly basis. This is more inclusive and possibly stirs more energy into every nook and cranny of the congregation. Nugget number 4, share a service with another UU congregation or community congregation and begin building bridges through technology. We do not always have to have people in our building, nor do we have to go out to reach into the community at large. Expand this idea to perhaps include a book club or topic discussion group. Expand what it means to be inclusive through technology. Nugget number 5, and I may be poking the bear with this one. Speak in plain language. This was new to me, but it makes perfect sense. Think about this. When we use Robert's Rules of Orders for congregational meetings, do we exclude people who are unfamiliar with this process and who may be intimidated to ask questions about what is actually happening? Do we strive to build consensus? Do we include rather than exclude our community? Do we behave respectfully and practice active and anti-oppressive engagement? Speaking in plain language. Perhaps the most meaningful session I experienced was entitled Post-Pandemic Small Congregations. Dr. Megan Foley, regional lead staff for the Central East region, conducted research with 6 small congregations to learn how well they adapted during the pandemic and what they might hold on to as they emerge from this dark period. Her findings are applicable to small congregations going forward, including ours. There were 3 qualities she identified that these small congregations all hold. They were mission-focused, they were nimble, they embraced radical inclusion. Mission-focused is what keeps us together and reminds us of what is important. For some congregations, it provided the opportunity to redefine or to finely tune what they mean by community. Is it the people in the congregation? People in the broader city and neighborhoods they find themselves in? Or a combination? Some congregations quickly assessed how the community landscape had changed during COVID and became outward-facing with their mission. One congregation was asked if their vacant building, since they were having no services, could be used for a warming shelter for the homeless in the broader community. Another congregation served their community by hosting a farmer's market in their parking lot. Yet another congregation learned that children who were to pick up packaged meals from their local school were being turned away because they or the adults in their families lacked masks. They started collecting masks from other UU churches and then distributed these masks to families coming to the school to pick up packages of food. Mission-focused, community within or community without, or both. Nimbleness, and tied to this is what is called faithful risking. The mission is the North Star and serves as a guide when we do not know what will happen next. And throughout this time of COVID, we were in that situation, not knowing what would happen next. A 3-step approach to assist with being nimble is comprised of taking action, reflection, and adaptation. We at UUCF have been doing this the entire year. We took action when early in 2020, COVID forced us to stop in-person services, close our building to our renters, and hunker down. Reflection. The board and worship committee and our ministers were reflecting at every turn and adjusting to the changes handed down from our government as to best practices to keep everyone safe. Adaptation. We learned about technology needs and jumped into it. We did not stop with services but pivoted to online. Action, reflection, adaptation equals being nimble. The good news is that the skills needed to be nimble are ones we already demonstrated that we have. And we can take heart in this because it is clear there is no going back to the way it used to be. Now is the time for us to continue being nimble. Now is the time for us to be reflective and adapt to the new normal. Lastly, radical inclusion. Now, some might ask, how can this be done when we remain online? Let's define inclusion broadly. Inclusion can come as we grow through the adaptation of both technology and in-person Sunday services. Zoom meetings provide ways for others to be engaged who otherwise might have had to sit out because of childcare, travel, and work restrictions. Online expands not only our worship life, but can redefine what it means to be an active member. We are challenged to think, can we keep up with people we haven't talked to in person? How do we do this? Online changes who we might have thought of as being in our community. We are challenged to shed the idea of church as it is supposed to be, so we can be free to be who we want to become. So we must ask ourselves, how have we been true to our mission? How do we lean into it fully? How can we continue to be nimble? We can clearly point to our growing competence in technology, but there's so much more we can do if we allow ourselves to think outside of the box. How does technology create efficiencies that free staff to do other activities? How do we promote the online pre-recorded service for more outreach? What would it look like if we collaborated with the same size or a bit larger congregation for services and staffing? How have we experienced new inclusion? How can we expand our circle and be radically inclusive? I've posed a number of questions and wonderings that I have, and please don't expect that I have the answers, because I don't. What I know is we have a great opportunity in this post-pandemic time and great challenges. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. And at this point, we will insert the music by Dan.
All my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. All my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. The season's spinning round again, the years keep rolling by. Now it seems like I've been here before, I can't remember when, but I get this funny feeling that we'll all be together again. No straight lines make up my life, all my roads have bends. There's no clear-cut beginnings, and so far no dead ends. All my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. All my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. The season's spinning round again, the years keep rolling by. The season's spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.
When I signed on to be a GA delegate for UUCF, I suffered almost immediately from regret. Coming off a marathon of family activities, my first thought was, not now. I thought, I'm not even worthy. I admit to being a very casual UU, dedicated more to this church in Flint and its people. I'm not particularly attached to UU rituals, history, and music. Never been to another UU church service. However, I could not think of a way to make a graceful exit. Now, I must say, GA got me from the beginning. The first video I watched was a pre-recorded Milwaukee spotlight, Draw the Circle Wide. Milwaukee interested me because it shares many similarities to Flint. The strengths, the challenges. There's a collective trauma of racism in these places. Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom, First UU Society of Milwaukee, pointed out that her church, much like ours, 90 to 95% white, not reflective of its neighborhood or the city. She talked about how the congregation wanted to mirror the diversity of the world beyond these walls. They created an anti-racism team to consider systems within the church contributing to this dynamic. They took steps that could be replicated here, starting with UU Beloved Conversations curriculum to help members reflect on their own personal experiences, race, identity, how personal experience intersects with history, economics, power, and institutional reality. Like Delma Jackson has told us from this pulpit, the white folks here, we have to do the work for ourselves, see beyond our privilege, enlarge our vision to a more welcoming, inclusive experience. Two Wisconsin ministers, Reverend Suzelle Lynch, Reverend David Kramer, talked about Black Lives Matter at Wisconsin UU, a program where 5 UU congregations working together since 2015 have taken action in support of BLM, bringing together resources of large and small congregations. They offered anti-racism workshops in cities and suburbs. They marched, kept vigils, and are currently taking on the loaded topic of reparations, hosting local Black activists, clergy, and artists for Reparations 101 theology. Educating ourselves is so important. There was a quote from a workshop on the environment that I attended that 90% of the time, an informed person will make the right decision. It's even more critical in this time of disinformation, intentional disinformation. Their action is united in hope, in struggle, recognizing and valuing the interdependence of us all. Okay, that was one sermon, and it was prior to the opening ceremony, but there was so much more to come. I would start with 11 o'clock services daily, healing through Indigenous storytelling and ceremony, grounded in courage, gathered for justice, building bridges, and then the final Sunday worship extravaganza. The services were beautiful, meaningful, blend of message and music. I thought the major Sunday service was all the more meaningful for being held in Minneapolis. An excerpt from the sermon by Reverend Jen Crow. We come to you from Falcon Heights, from Brooklyn Center, and from George Floyd Square. We acknowledge the trauma that is deeply embedded in the foundation of this country, the genocide, enslavement, ongoing occupation, oppression that's impacted Indigenous communities, communities of color, immigrants, and other communities. The culture of colonization, white supremacy, injures us all. We acknowledge communities of resistance that continue to side with love, teaching us through their persistence, courage, creativity, another way is possible. And that even in a world where the fires keep coming, it is possible for us to level up in what it means to thrive. And this, friend, is a kind of transformation I'm inviting us into as individuals and as Unitarian Universalists. Even in the society that is so broken, so soul-breaking, we are called to live lives and create communities of collective liberation. Places where we can feel joy, where we can be welcomed in the fullness of who we are, and trust will be welcome in love with that wide embrace that we talk about. This is who we are. This is who we're called to be. We can do this. We can level up to what it means to thrive, be people of that wide welcome, be part of the love that will not let us go, to stay in the struggle, friends, until love wins. This is a message to aspire to here at UUCF. And beyond the services, I attended workshops, watched a concert by the Brown Mountain Lightning Bugs, and the keynote speakers. This I wish I had been able to see in person. Stacey Abrams and Desmond Meade. Both of Stacey Abrams' parents became ministers, so no wonder she can stand and deliver. She talked about a faith that didn't care about your pocketbook, but your heart. A family philosophy of no matter how little they had, they were there to serve those with less. Her organizational efforts are based on these premises. Her work inspires to create a space for others to hear their own voice, to call out what they need, and to demand the leadership to meet that need. Fair Fight was founded to make sure the election process manifests those aspirations by being accessible to all. Georgia's flip from red to blue was a beautiful validation of her efforts. Desmond Meade has an infectious smile, Advice that served him well was to meet people where they are, not where they need to be, and to be the most patient person in the conversation. He led a successful voter initiative in Florida, passing Amendment 4, restoring voter rights to over 1.4 million Floridians with past felony convictions. He himself is included in that number. This was huge. The single largest expansion of voting rights in half a century. Think about it. Bringing an end to 150 years of Jim Crow in Florida. He answers people who say their vote doesn't matter with, then why are people trying so hard to prevent you from voting? He documents his achievement in his book, Let My People Vote, My Battle to Restore the Rights of Returning Citizens, published by Beacon Press, an American nonprofit book publisher founded in 1854 by the American Unitarian Association. He thanked UUs for their help and is looking forward to working with our Florida congregations in the future. There's work this congregation can do to this effect in Flint. County Clerk John Gleason has worked to register underserved voters in our local judicial system. We can join him and others. So this was a message that resonated with me from our 2021 GA. Find the need, fill the need. Midterms are coming, there's work to be done. GA gave me renewed strength and hope for the struggle and for the future. Thank you.
Now we'll have our time for generosity and gratitude. Pablo Picasso said, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." So, what are your gifts? And who do you give them to? Your family, your community, this congregation. Consider making a gift to UUCF at uuflint.org or sending a check to our church office. All gifts are gratefully received. And now we have some announcements. We're gathering for lunch and greeting friends each Saturday at noon behind the church. Bring your lunch and a chair to join in our community, weather permitting. The worship committee is asking those who are willing to share where you go or what you do to find or get in touch with your spirituality. This could be in nature or it could be an activity. Please send a 2 to 3 minute video of your experience to Sue Owen Kinsey. All of these videos will be combined for part of our service on September 5th. Second Sunday collection this month is for the Michigan Unitarian Universalists Social Justice Network, whose mission is to foster the worth and dignity of people by promoting social justice. Michigan UU Social Justice Network engages other UU congregations in advocacy, training, and education. Issues such as gun violence prevention, environmental justice, immigration reform, and get out the vote are addressed by the network. To contribute to this vital work, please send your check anytime this month, made out to UUCF with MUUSJN on the memo line. You can also make this contribution online at uuflint.org. And lastly, save the date, September 12th, for our in-gathering service. We will be live and in person here in the sanctuary. Can I get an amen for that? Amen for that.
Closing words are from the Milwaukee service by Reverend Tony Larson. Let us go forth from this place ready to reopen our mind, reawaken our spirit, recover our courage, recapture our heart. Let us revive what is dying, rekindle what flickers, reboot what is crashing, retool what has stopped. Rebel at injustice, resist all repression, remove all the barriers, refuse to give up. Repair what is broken, revive what is sleeping, rebuild what has fallen, and reform what's unjust. Because one day, I don't know if it'll come in my lifetime, but one day The chains will be broken. Those asleep will wake up. Those estranged can make up. And all the fearful will stand up. And all who've given up will get up. And those who have strayed will shape up. And those who are missing will show up. And none of us will give up, back up, or shut up until the world we dream of is built up. One day affirmed, unafraid, alive and in love, again and again. Blessed be. Amen. And now we'll extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.